top shelf.
Hello and welcome to Top Shelf Board Games. I'm Hubbit, and today we're going to learn how to play Near and Far. Near and Far is an adventure game where you will be exploring the wastelands of Arzeum, searching for the lost ruin. And you'll be completing quests and side quests and exploring and gaining things in the town, dueling each other, and claiming trade routes, gaining coins and gems, and going on just some wacky adventures. So let's go to the table and learn how to play. Okay, so this is Near and Far, set up for a two-player campaign game. The board's set up with your 5 different adventures up here that can be purchased later on in the game. You have your deck of advanced artifact cards, your basic artifact cards. These can be purchased or drawn throughout the game. We have the board up here. We have our pack birds. There's 3 pack birds per player. And we have our treasure deck over here. And we also have a reputation marker up here that tracks our positive and negative reputation that we gain throughout the round. The board has 7 different books placed out randomly across the map. You spread them out and distribute them, evenly across both sides of the map, and some close to the starting area and then some far away. That way you have to adventure out to interact with the storybooks. We also have the threat deck that's been set up. The threats are put in order, starting with the bandit of 4, and then 5, 6, and they just go in order. They get increasingly more difficult as they're defeated. The chief cards are laid out on the side. These can be gained. We have the world deck cards. These are cards that might be acquired through the different adventures that you go on, and these provide just different bonuses as you have them in play. As far as the player board goes, we have our little reference cards, our player aid that shows us the actions that we can do on our turn, and then also what each of the symbols mean on the different tokens and cards that are going to be in play. We also start with a companion. The companion can start in any of the 4 spots that we have for adventurers. They don't have a specific faction that they belong to, so they can occupy any of it. And we have our heart track set at 0. We start with 3 coins, and our tents are lined up along the bottom here. There's 14 tents placed out, and the game will end once this last tent has been pulled off the board. Also, there'll be a drafting phase of artifact cards. Everybody's given 5 basic ones and 2 advanced artifacts. You'll take your 5 basic cards, you'll choose one and pass it around, and you'll keep doing that until everybody has drafted 5 basic cards. Then the 2 advanced cards that you were given, you choose one to keep and you discard the other. And that's the basic setup for Near and Far. So let's jump right into the gameplay and how it works. On your turn, there's 2 actions that you can choose to do. The 2 actions that you can choose from are visit the town or go on an adventure. You'll choose 1 action to do per turn, and then it'll go to the next player's turn. Buying an artifact card from your hand is a free action that you can do, and it can be done at any time on your turn. All right, when you choose the visit town action, you'll take your standee and move it to one of the buildings that you want to visit. If you are already in town, then you have to move to a different building if you want to stay in town. If we go to the town hall, there's 3 different things that you can do at the town hall. You can trade items, you can discard any artifact cards that you don't want to keep in your hand, or turn in coins or gems in order to increase your reputation or decrease your reputation. So let's go over trading. Trading allows you to take 5 items that you have in hand and turn them in for 1 item, or you can take 1 item and turn it in for 5 other items. Each item, it has a different value listed. So food is worth 1 value, coins are worth 2, gems are worth 2, and the different banners are worth between 4 and 7. Anytime you do a trade, you have to make sure that what you trade in is equal to what you're getting. For example, we could take our blue banner that we have on our player board. We could take this blue banner, we could turn it in, and it's worth 7 value. And so we could get 7 value worth of other items, up to 5 total different items. So we could take 2 coins, which is a value of 4. We could take 3 food, which would put us at 7. So the coins were worth 2 each, and the food is worth 1 each. So we could change in this 1 blue banner as a value of 7 and get 3 tokens, 2 coins, and 3 food. The next thing you can do is you can discard artifact cards. Artifact cards at the end of the game, if you haven't put them into play, they're going to be negative points. You'll lose 1 point for each of them. So this is where you can go to discard an artifact card. The next thing you can do is you can turn in any coins that you have, as many as you want, as well as gems to increase or decrease your reputation. So if we wanted to, we could turn in 3 coins and move up 3 spaces on the reputation track. Anytime you gain reputation, you'll move to the right. Anytime you lose reputation, you'll move to the left. And that is basically the town hall actions that you can do. The next space on the town board is the saloon. If you go to the saloon, this is where you can purchase adventurers to add to your player board. When you purchase a adventurer, the cost is in the bottom right hand corner. So this one costs 5 gold, and it belongs to the red faction banner. Anytime you purchase a adventurer, you can place them onto your player board, and you have to place them on the banner that they match. So he's a red banner, so he can cover our red banner space, and we can have 4 active adventurers at a time. They have to be from different factions, obviously. The companion, if we had bought a green banner, we could move him over to a different banner so we could put, that color of adventurer on our board. Anytime you go to purchase a adventurer, any blue banner tokens that we have will provide a discount when we purchase that color of adventurer. Where we have 1 blue banner token, we could reduce the cost of this blue banner adventurer by 1. So instead of costing us 4, he would only cost us 3 coins. And we could pay our 3 coins and take him, put him in our blue spot. You can have more adventurers of the same color, but any additional ones that you buy will just go to the side of your board and can be swapped in and out when you go to do an adventure. With purchasing adventurers, if you ever purchase 4 of the same banner type, you automatically will gain the chief of that banner. And the chief basically is going to give us 5 victory points at the end of the game. That's what this little red banner is. It's the victory points of the game. They're called journey points. If you didn't like the adventurers that were on the board, you could pay 1 food to get rid of all the adventurers on the board and have 5 more of them brought out in place. And so that's the saloon action. The next action you could do is you could go to the stables. You can pay 1 food and gain a pack bird. When you gain a pack bird, it goes down here in your pack bird spot. And what a pack bird does is it's going to allow you to gain 1 extra movement, indicated by the arrow symbol right here. Normally you start with a base movement of 2 movement points. The pack bird will give you another one for a total of 3. The pack bird also allows you to gain a treasure card. In order to put a treasure card into your board, you have to have a pack bird in play. And so that's the stable action. The next spot you could go to is the general store. This allows you to either gain 1 coin, or you can choose 4 artifact cards and draw them into your hand. This allows you to get more artifact cards that you can work on putting into play and getting more points. Before you draw your 4 cards, you'll have to say that I want to draw 2 basic and 2 advanced, or 3 basic and 1 advanced, and then you'll draw those cards into your hand. Once you draw the cards into your hand, you'll look at them and choose which ones you want to keep. You can keep all of them, or you could discard, all but 1 of them. But whatever ones you choose to keep, you won't be able to get rid of unless you go do the town hall action. And you'll take these cards and add them to your hand, and now they can be built and put into play later on. The farm space, you go here if you want to gain food. You'll gain food equal to how many skill points you have in your active party. So we would go down and look in our active party and count up all the hand symbols that we have, or the skill symbol. And we have a total of 1 skill in our active party, so we would gain 1 food by going to the farm. The Mystic's Hut, you go here to gain a treasure card. You simply draw it. You'll take the treasure and put it in an available spot that you have. And the treasure provides a bonus, for your party. In this case, we get an extra heart when we go to adventure. If we had already had a treasure in place and we had drawn another one, we would have to either discard the one that's in play or discard the one we just drew, because we don't have a pack bird to place a second treasure. The mine is the last space that you can go to, and the mine allows you to get coins and gems. It also allows you to put tents onto the board. When you go to this space, you have to count up all your skill points that you have in your active party, which we have a total of 1, and then you can build a tent, or you can put a tent into the mine. If there's no tents in the mine, then the first tent has to go up in this left-hand corner with the 1 that is underlined. So you would take a tent, put it on the 1 skill point that you have, and then you would gain the reward of that space in the mine. In this case, we would gain 1 coin because it intersects with our tent. And there's nothing above our tent that intersects, so we would gain just the 1 coin. If there was already a tent in play, whether it was your tent or a different player's tent, you can go ahead and build orthogonally to that tent. Because we only have a skill point of 1, we could only build a tent down here. However, if you had a skill point of 2, you could go ahead and build on that side. If we had 2 skill points, we could build it right there, and we would then gain a gem and we would gain a coin for building on that space of the mine. And that's the actions that you can do when you visit the town. You'll choose one of those spaces to go to, perform that action, and then it'll be your next player's turn. One thing to keep in mind for the action board is that when you go to town, normally you can't move into a space and take an action right away if there's an opponent there. You would first have to duel that opponent. The way a duel works is you'll decide if you want to duel honorably or if you want to duel dishonorably. If you duel dishonorably, you'll get +1 to your die roll, and you'll be able to lose 1 reputation point. If you fight honorably, you don't get any bonuses to your roll, but you will be able to gain a reputation point. Once you've decided if you want to fight honorably or dishonorably, you'll go ahead and roll a dice, and you'll take the number that you roll, you'll add it to any sword symbols that you have in your active party or in any cards. So in this case, we have 1 sword over here, and we have a sword over here, which gives us 2 swords on top of the 2 that we rolled. So we would have a total combat value of 4. Our opponent would also do the same. They would roll their dice and add up all their sword symbols, and whoever had the highest would win. Because we're the attacker, if we had any hearts left over, we could spend hearts and gain +1 combat for each heart that we spend. The defender cannot spend hearts to gain combat. If we win, say we win the duel, then we get to go ahead and stay on this space and immediately take the action of that building space. If we had, and then we would also gain reputation or lose based on what we chose to fight honorably or dishonorably. If we had lost the duel, though, we would instead have to go to jail, which is this space over here. And basically all that means is that on our next turn, we have to move into any one of the town spaces, and we are not allowed to duel again. And that is basically how duels work. It should be noted too that anytime you remove a tent from your board, if there's any symbols underneath of that tent, you immediately gain that reward. So when we place this tent onto the board, we would immediately gain a coin for doing so. The second action that you could choose to do if you don't want to visit town is you could go on an adventure. There's two parts to an adventure. First is the leaving town part, and then the actual moving and attempting quests. When you leave town, you'll take your marker, your standee, and you'll place him onto the home space on the map. Once you place your standee on the home space on the map, you can go ahead and organize your party. This is where you can take any adventures that you have off the board and swap them out with active players on the board, and then get your party ready to adventure. Once you've got your party organized, you have to reset your hearts. So you'll count up all the hearts that you have. In this case, we have 2, 3, 4, 5 total hearts from cards that we have in play and our adventures and treasures. And so we would move our hearts up to 5. Then we would be able to go ahead and do the second part of the adventure. The second part of the adventure is to move, attempt quests, and or build camps. And we'll do it in that order. When we move, the way movement works in this game is each space counts as one movement. You just follow the dotted lines that are connected, and that would be one movement. Our total movement starts with 2, but we get an extra one for the pack bird, and then we also have an artifact card in play, which gives us another one. So we have a total movement of 4 that we can move. So we can go ahead and move. We can go 1, 2, and that would we could go ahead and end there. We can end wherever we want. We just can't move more than 4 spaces. Anytime you move over an empty space, meaning that there's no tent in that space, you have to pay a heart to pass an empty space. So if we had moved 2 spaces to here, we would have passed 1 empty space, and so we'd have to pay a heart for doing so. Also, part of movement is occasionally you'll move across a dotted line that has a threat symbol. Anytime you move where there's going to be a threat symbol that you're going to cross, you have to stop and deal with a threat card. You'll choose the top card of the threat deck, and you'll roll your dice and do a combat action, much like the dueling. You'll roll a dice and add up all your sword symbols, and if that total is greater than the threat level, you defeat the threat and place it either underneath your player board, or if you don't have room, you can just place it to the side. And then you'll take a tent off of your board and place it onto the spot of the tent. Remember to gain any tokens that are revealed when you place a tent. Threats always remain active unless there's a tent on both sides. So for example, if we had a tent here and no tent here, this threat is still active. However, if we had a tent here and a tent on the other side of it, doesn't matter if it's other colored tents or not, but if there's tents on both sides of the threat is neutralized, and so now you can move without having to face any threats. The threats progressively get more difficult, so it's good to put camps on the other side to neutralize the threats. Anytime you move and cross over a treasure symbol, you get to draw from the treasure deck and follow the same rules as before with placing a treasure card. You have to have any pack birds in play. If you don't, you can discard previous treasures in order to put the new one into play. Once you have completed all the movement that you want to do following those rules, you can go ahead and stop. If you stop on a space with a book, you'll go ahead and do an adventure where you get to read a story and interact with this quest marker. But before we do that, we're going to assume that you stopped on just one of these spaces. Most of the spaces have either coins or gems on them, and if you stop there, you can go ahead and build a tent. To build a tent, it costs you 3 hearts. So you can go ahead and spend 3 hearts, take a tent off your board, and put it onto the space that you're at. If you build a tent on a gem or a coin, you get to immediately gain coins or gems. The way you gain coins or gems is based on how many eye symbols or search symbols that you have in your party or cards. In this case, we have a total of 1 search symbol, so we would gain 1 coin for building that tent. Likewise, with the treasure symbols, if there's a tent on both sides of it, that treasure's considered looted, it's neutralized, and you can no longer gain the treasure by moving across it. Another space that you could end your movement on is one with a quest on it and one with a trade symbol. The trade symbols, after you've interacted with the quest, you can still have the option to build a tent. And if you chose to build a tent by spending the 3 hearts, you would put it on this space. There's 2 trade routes or trade symbols on every map. So for instance, these peppers, if we put a tent there, we've claimed half of that trade route. If we had gone over to the other pepper and were able to build another tent later on in the game, we would now control this trade route, and at the end of the game, we would get 10 victory points. If the trade route was, the other half was claimed by a different player, then we would together claim that trade route and get the smaller victory points at the end of the game. Okay, so let's go over a quest. When you end on a space with a quest, you remove the bookmarker and you'll look at the number of the quest and flip to it in the book. We have a giant quest book here, and there is going to be a little bit of a spoiler if you're worried about that, but we need to read quest 35. So the person to your left would go ahead and read quest 35. And what you're going to do is read this initial paragraph, and then you're going to read the skill that's involved as well as the bolded text. And then you'll read the other option or the other choice that they have to choose from, as well as that 1 sentence bolded text. So for instance, the person to our left would read, "You climb a steep trail to a green pasture filled with goats. Nearby, a goat herd sits with his head in his hand outside a stone cottage. My wife is angry with me," he says. "She hasn't opened that door in days." And then you would read, "Skill 8, you convince the woman to open the door so they can talk out their problems." Or Skill 5, you break down the cottage door. Once you've read those 2 options, you'll go ahead and choose which one you want to do. So because we only have 1 skill point, we would probably choose to do Skill 5. And then we would do our skill check. It's the same as a combat. We'd roll the dice and add any of the skill symbols that we have. So we have 1 skill symbol plus the 5 that we rolled gives us a total skill of 6. Because we had enough skill points to beat it, they go ahead and read what happens. So you burst inside and the goat herd's wife screams, throwing pots at you from the kitchen. You take some of the food inside and nod to the shepherd. "Fix that," you say before continuing your journey. And then you would go ahead and gain the rewards. Because we had a total reward or a total skill of 6, we would get the bonus here where we would lose 1 reputation, gain a green faction token, and gain a coin. Anytime you defeat a quest by 2 or more, so if we had a total of 7 skill points, we would also gain an extra coin in this case. And so that's the basics of interacting with the quest and the quest book. However, because we are doing a campaign mode, there are times where your players that you're playing will acquire keywords. Anytime you get a keyword, you'll write the keywords down in this keyword slot. And then when you are given a quest, if one of the choices says keyword copper or keyword, whatever keyword you happen to have, if you have the keyword copper in this case, they would have to read you this choice instead of the other 2. However, if you didn't have the keyword, then they would just read you the typical 2 options that you have to choose from. And so that's how the keywords kind of modify what section you're going to be read and what choices you might or might not have. But that's only in the campaign mode that really takes place. The other thing you might encounter for when you do a quest, particularly when you're playing the campaign mode, is throughout the adventuring, you might gain quests. These are quests that have already been completed in the campaign that we're currently doing. I was able, as one of the rewards, I received quest 12. And so when I went to a space that had a quest book, instead of reading the quest that was on the board, you instead turn to the quest that you have on your side quest bubble here. So instead of reading quest 35, you would actually read quest 12. Quest 12, side quest 12 is found towards the back of the book. You have all the side quests, and they go the same way, but the side quests are just kind of more of a side route or side thing that you're working on, as opposed to just the normal quests that everybody has access to. And once again, that's unique to just a campaign mode that we're learning today. After you've completed the quest and gained any rewards, you have the option to go ahead and build that tent that we talked about. And after you build the tent or choose not to build the tent, your turn will end and it'll go to your next player's turn. And so those are the two actions you'll be choosing from. You'll be either visiting town, choosing one of the spaces to take the action of, or you'll be going on an adventure, organizing your party, gaining your hearts, and going out and completing quests, dealing with threats, and building tents onto the map. The last thing you could do before your turn ends, or at any time during your turn, is you can buy an artifact card. You have a hand of artifact cards, and the way these work is on the left-hand side, it tells you the cost to build this card. In this case, to build the Singing Skull, we would need to pay 2 coins and 1 gem. And then we could take the card and put it down into play. This card, we would then gain victory points at the end of the game equal to the flag symbol, and it's going to give us a permanent ability or skill or combat bonus. In this case, we're going to gain 1 reputation when you visit the saloon. So every time we get to go to the saloon, we'll gain a reputation point because we have this artifact in play. And so that's how building artifact cards work. If a artifact card has a banner symbol, then in order to build it, we have to be able to discard a banner token from our player board. Aside from coins and gems, you might have to have a specific reputation requirement. In this case, we have to have a reputation of 6 in order to be able to build the Cloak of Stars. Because we only have a reputation of 3 currently, we wouldn't be able to build this Cloak of Stars. We'd have to go to the town hall, spend some coins, and increase our reputation, or go do more adventures and more quests and hope to increase our reputation that way. It should be noted too that in a 2-player game, you're always going to have one character, kind of a dummy character, on the town hall. This makes it to where if any of the 2 players decide to go to the town hall, they're going to have to duel the dummy player that's there. If both a dummy player and the other player are there and you move in there, then you have to duel with the active, or you have to duel with the actual player. When you duel a dummy player, he isn't able to add swords or anything like that. You just roll the dice, and that's all the combat value that the dummy player will have. Also, as far as the town board goes, it's important to note that in the saloon, as many players as they want can enter the saloon without dueling, as indicated by the 4 player symbols at the top of the icon here. You can still choose to duel if you want to, but unlike these other spaces, you don't have to duel if multiple people are in the saloon. Another thing with moving across the threats, if you don't want to fight a threat, you can ignore a threat. And there's 3 different ways that you can ignore a threat. One way is you can take a pack bird that you have and you can discard the pack bird. If you discard the pack bird, you get to ignore the threat and move through it. The other thing you can do is if you have a party member that has a shield symbol, then you're also allowed to ignore any threats that you come across. The third way to ignore a threat is if you have any abilities from artifact cards or treasures or any world cards, in play that have the word ignore threat. If any of them say ignore threat, then you can also ignore the threats and move through them. Also, as a side note, anytime you go on an adventure and you leave town, any hearts that you currently had left over from previous adventures get reset. You don't add your hearts to the hearts that you already have. You'll start over with hearts and recount what your total is going to be. With the campaign mode, everybody has a character card, and you'll be keeping track of quests that you complete and skill points that you gain. Anytime you complete a quest, whether you failed a quest or you succeeded the quest, you're going to fill in one of these boxes. After you've completed 3 quests, you'll gain 1 skill point, and you'll indicate that by filling in a star on your character card. And then that'll mean that you have 1 skill point. So in this case, my character has 1 skill point available, and I have completed 1 more quest. If I get 2 more, I'll gain another skill point. Skill points can be used to purchase different talents and upgrades for your character. For instance, I spent 2 skill points and purchased gem trading. And in the book, you have different talents that are available. There's a whole list of them down here, as well as how many skill points it costs to do them. For instance, the gem trading that I purchased cost me 2 skill points. And basically what they do is now I have this permanent ability of I can spend gems as if they were coins, but not coins as though they were gems. So that's just a permanent thing I will always have throughout the 10 rounds or 10 games of the campaign. I'll always have gem trading. And then as I gain more skill points, I can purchase more of these talents that'll further customize the way my guy is going to be able to play each round. Anytime you spend your skill points, you'll simply fill in the entire circle to indicate that you've spent those skill points. At the end of the 10 games, if you have completely filled in all of your skill points and all of your boxes, you'll get an extra 7 journey points or victory points at the end of the campaign. Once your game ends, which is going to be triggered by the last tent being played, everybody will be able to finish taking turns until everybody's had the same amount of turns. And then you'll add up victory points. And you'll take your total of victory points and put them onto your character card. And after all 10 maps have been played throughout the campaign, you'll add up the entire total. And whoever has the most is going to be the ultimate winner of the campaign. Now let's quickly go over victory points and how you get them. Okay, so the way you're going to count up victory points is you're going to look at all the camps you've placed on the map or that you've placed on threat cards. And you'll get 1 point for every tent that you have placed. So I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points or 7 points from tents that have been placed into the game. Next is trade route points. We've controlled the pepper trade route by having tents on both sides or both trade points, and so we would go ahead and get an extra 10 points for those trade routes. Any other ones, if we had half of the cog and an opponent had the other cog, we would get another 4 points, and we would add that to our total. Any artifacts that we have put into play, we get points for each of the banners. In this case, we'd have a total of 34 victory points from our artifact cards. We'd also add any victory points from text that we have. For instance, this one gives us +1 journey point at game end per mystic that we have recruited. So any blue banner adventurers would give us an extra victory point because of that special ability on the card. You'd also gain any other card bonuses from treasures or from world cards that you have. You also gain 1 point for every 2 coins and gems that you have. You get 1 point for every banner token that you have. You also get points for the reputation that you have. So if we had 4 reputation, we would get an extra 2 victory points for that. And we would then look at our player board to get any bonuses from there. If we had filled up our treasures, all 3 treasures were filled in, we'd get an extra 5 points for that. If we had placed all of our tents out onto the board, we would get an extra 2 points for that. We would also count up any bonus points that we get from the chiefs. Each of them are worth 5. We'd also add up any victory points we have from bandit cards. In this case, we have 1. And once you've taken all the numbers from each of those categories, you add them all together, and that gets you your final total for the game. And then whoever has the most journey points is going to be the winner of that game. Also, any artifact cards that you have in your hand are going to lose you 1 victory point. So in this case, we would lose 4 victory points. And that's how you play Near and Far. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And be sure to share it with your friends and gaming group so you can all learn the game together or use it as a refresher video to get up to speed on how to play the game. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe, follow us on Facebook, like us on Twitter. Thanks for watching. Bye.